because the drug company shouldn't have been out there selling the doctor on it, and the doctor maybe should have reconsidered prescribing it and think twice about accepting his lunch and a trip to Florida or wherever.
My malpractice rates are higher than in Delaware, higher than in Wisconsin, higher than in California.
That's because the insurance companies are taking advantage of you.
Because the legal system is different here.
It's time you focused on the insurance industry.
There is, look, I think
Stop talking about games.
You know, Steve makes, I think, you know, in this debate, everybody's a little right and everybody's a little wrong.
The fact that the prosecuting attorneys very much overtried the case. They did a terrible job. And for them to get all this publicity, write books, and, you know, and all, teach in law school, I wouldn't want to be a student of those two, because frankly, they don't know how to try a case.
We're not talking about a situation where he's eavesdropping on our wives or our girlfriends, swapping sweet potato pie recipes. We're talking about a very, very real threat, an enemy that wants to kill us, and they're everywhere.
What is that got to do with going to the court after the fact?
Really only applies to criminal actions.
Within 72 hours, within a week. Don't say it only applies to criminal actions.
Read the act.
I read the act. There's no reason to sanctify this misconduct by the Bush administration, which is broad-based. It's not just
I think Steve has said something very important, with which I entirely agree.
There is a legitimate ability to go to a court, have an independent entity look at what they're doing. Let's find out. They don't want to be in the limelight. They don't want to have people focus on their dishonesty, the corruptness, which is rife in this administration.
Are they handing out money to these doctors? Because that's what you make it sound like.
No, they don't hand it out.
Or are they doing clinical studies? Are they giving out money for grants?
The doctors, look, I've seen the documents. I've done the depositions. Okay. I've been in the litigation. I know exactly what they do.
What do they do?
And what they do is they call them rabbits. If you're a heavy prescriber, you are a rabbit, and you get lots of money.
They are buying science, funding studies that have no merit whatsoever, and misleading the public, and causing women to continue to think implants may be safe when they aren't.
What is it in the United States
that enables
It's not true that
it's in the rest of the world.
It's almost the entire rest of the world.
Oh,
Europe, they're banned in. Even
not.
Brazil, they're banned in now. Now, the question I have for you is, why are you insisting and persisting in this when you can't even use it in Europe? These labelings, because you are engaged in a misrepresentation.
You actually had a chance
around here?
If you actually had a chance
anyway.
to see how cases
anytime
are tried.
Tell you what, anytime.
I want to rebalance this country. I want to resurrect the real Republican Party, the one I once knew and liked. I think the time has come to really change things. Congressman Greenwood, you're a lawyer, and you know better than...
I'm not a lawyer.
I thought, well, then I apologize. That might explain why you don't know what you're talking about.
That's, I'll tell you what, Mr. Scheller.
The FDA never gets around to concluding there's fraud. It happens so seldom, you can almost never get them to act. So what happens is the consumer's stuck with going into court and having to prove fraud on the FDA, and the judge says, you can't do that in our courtroom, you got to go to the FDA, which is, as Senator Specter said, and I completely agree, a joke.
We always like to say about you, Steve, don't mince words, tell us how you really feel. But in other words, you've seen in the 20 years, and I know you've been practicing longer than that, you've actually seen, and maybe this has something to do with Don Spry talking about civility, where attorneys may not be enjoying the practice as much as they used to. Maybe they didn't get involved in practicing law, first and foremost, to be an advocate. Maybe it was something else, dollar signs, perhaps?
Yeah, I think dollar signs have a lot to do with it. Things have changed, yes, in 20 years, but what hasn't changed is my view that for lawyers, they need to practice law in a way where they really like what they're doing. And if they don't like what they're doing, then they shouldn't be practicing.
Steve was ambitious right out of the gate. The cases he took on weren't the blockbusters he would someday win national renown for, but they were often challenging and represented novel issues that he had a penchant for addressing. He took cases concerning consumer fraud, personal injury, and election law. He represented both individuals and unions, often facing off against the ingrained bureaucracy. In those years, he also undertook numerous civil rights cases with the ACLU, matters where his passion for individual rights was always on display. His political career never quite took off. Early on, he made a run for city council under the Consumer Party, but soon returned to his love of being a litigator.